It's my honor to introduce you to Malcolm Hawker, the head of data strategy at Profisee, a very, very well-known MDM company, ex-Gartner analyst, a keynote speaker, and a very, very passionate data guy. All right. So I think I met you, Malcolm, earlier this year in the Day-to-Day Texas in Austin. And I sat in your presentation. By God, the energy, the enthusiasm, and more importantly, the clarity in how you articulated data strategy was just very, very clear. So thank you for being on my show.
Thank you, Arvind. I recall our meeting vividly. That Day-to-Day Texas event was fantastic. And if you haven't been and you have the ability to go, I want to say it's January 25th this year, January 25th, 2025, but don't hold me to that. It's late January. If you have the ability to go and you're in the world of data and analytics, you should absolutely go. It's a lot of fun, great people, great community vibe, great topics. Yeah, so it was my pleasure to meet you there, and I'm glad we're talking today.
Awesome. Just a little plug, Sol Rashidi was another speaker who had the similar energy as Malcolm. So two of you guys just rocked it on the day-to-day. All right, so maybe a little bit of introduction about yourself, Malcolm.
Thank you. You already shared a lot of the important stuff. You know, I've been in the data and analytics and just more widely the software space a long time, but I started my career really in product management. Spent my first 15 years really focused on building and managing and leading product teams. I was the chief product officer for a software startup actually based out of Austin that ended up getting bought out by a company called NetSuite. We were building project management software, and it was actually really good software. Transition from product into leading data teams, leading governance efforts, leading the implementation of MDM, selecting MDM software, selecting governance software. I transitioned into Gartner, where I was talking to CIOs and CDOs every day, which was just a blast. And now I'm with Profisee, and I get to do what I did at Gartner, but I get to do it on multiple channels now. I get to have a podcast, and I can print white papers, and I can contribute to Forbes. I can do all sorts of fun stuff and share what I know after 30 years of being in this space. And frankly, a lot of what I know has been learned through failure. And what I try to share on LinkedIn and through podcasts like this and others is you know, frankly, hey, we know what works. We know what doesn't work. I've stepped in it many times. And maybe you don't have to.
Amen to that. Amen to that. You know, Malcolm, what's interesting is I've had a few other guests with your kind of background, meaning from a product perspective, right? People who work in the product company or people who come from the business side, rather than traditional IT side or services side, if you will. One thing that's very common from y'all is the ability to articulate what works and what doesn't work in the context of business. You always talk about the value and the relationship of data to the business value. It's very easy to say, but it's very hard to do. So I see a common thread there. But I want to start with a very, very bold statement you made a couple of weeks ago. Don't follow your passion, follow your strengths.
Yeah, it turned out maybe a little controversial. I didn't think it would be that controversial.
Elaborate, please.
Well, so I have a bit of an interesting background. So my lead up to my career started coming out of graduate school here in the United States. I went to graduate school, but I'm an immigrant. I came from Canada, and being an immigrant and being in a position of you've got to find work or you got to leave, I mean, is a very burdensome, but also galvanizing thing I already have. I didn't have time to learn entirely new things. What I had time to do, the only time I had was to find what I was good at and exacerbate it and amplify that. And I found out, wow, that works. And I kept doing it and I kept doing it. And the more I did it, the more I got passionate about what I was doing because I was mastering what I was doing. I was becoming incredibly good at the things that I was doing, and I was able to share those messages with other people. I was able to become a leader. I was able to become a servant leader because I had done the work. I'd been there. I'd kind of come up through the ranks. So I had this epiphany the other day. It's like, you know what? Had I followed my passions, I don't know if I'd be where I am today. Maybe I would. I don't know. But I do know for sure that following this idea of mastery, becoming really, really good at what you do, has led me to become incredibly, unbelievably passionate about what I do. And there isn't a single person, and thank you for your kind words, by the way, but there isn't a single person that I've met who has not said when this topic comes up, man, you're really passionate. And I know I exude that, but my passion is not data. If you asked me today, if you said, hey, here's a bag of money, you don't have to worry about finances anymore. You don't have to worry about money. If somebody said that, if I won the lotto, I'm going to take pretty pictures.
Position. I mean, I think there are a few things that you said which kind of resonated with me, right? So, of course, I had a different passion too growing up, but I didn't follow my passion. I became a master in being a data strategist, an AI strategist, right? But at the end of the day, the mastery leads to passion as well, which is what you are today. So as you become really good at it and you have the energy. Now, the good thing is there are so many people who are good at what they're doing, right? That makes sense.
No, it does. What you're basically saying is time is a function here.
Yes.
I would argue partially. I'm to this point, and I can say the things that I'm saying it partially because I've had time to hone my craft. So I think that's a part of it. But you're also saying is that there may be something innate to me or my personality that uniquely positions me to stand in front of a crowd and be passionate about, right? Absolutely. There's something my father said to me when I was very young, and I've just carried with me all the time. And I've challenged this, and I've thought at times that it wasn't true. And I've wondered if it was true, and I thought my dad was crazy at times, but he's just always said to me, hey, you know what? The cream will absolutely rise to the top. It has to rise to the top. And as long there are people who are trying to undercut you, there are people who don't want you to rise to the top. There are people who are riding your coattails. There are people who will happily let you do the work and take the credit for it. There's all these things. That's all true, but the cream will necessarily rise to the top. And if you are good at something,
I love that.
anything, right? Like if you are a really good gardener, if you are really passionate and good and are a master at anything, you will be
fantastic. So let's jump into the world of data. Platitudes. So you mentioned a lot about garbage in, garbage out, some of these data driven, clearly, you call them the platitude, but at the end of the day, what I want to get to is what's going on in the world of data. I mean, what is hot, what is not? What do people want to think about? Let's not jump into Gen AI yet. I know everybody talks about it.
Well, what's hot in the world of data is, what's old is new again. And it's focusing on foundations, right? And it is the AI conversation, although we're not talking about it, has galvanized and reinforced a focus on getting the data house in order, whatever that means. But we do this every 4 to 5 years. Right, we did it about a dozen years ago with Hadoop and big data and the promise there. We did it about 4 years ago when people started focusing on digital transformation and digital acceleration. That was exacerbated through the global pandemic, and we're doing it again now. So there's this cycle every 4 to 5 years. We keep renewing our passion around and our focus on data foundations. Yet, Arvind, sadly, many of us fail to actually do that for a lot of different reasons. But that's what a lot of people are talking about that now. And I would argue people are talking about data products really only because there's this focus on, I need to get the house in order, right? And I need to organize my stuff. I need to sell my stuff. I need to categorize or classify or label my stuff. My stuff may be a dashboard and maybe an API, maybe a pipeline. It doesn't matter, but I got to get it in order. Hey, data products seem pretty cool. That's a good way to do it. I'm attracted to that idea, but I think the underlying force there is this idea of getting the foundations in order.
Gotcha. So fair to say, despite of calling it what's hot and what's not, foundation always remains consistent. But what I'm hearing is there are some major events happening in the world beyond our control, which is the pandemic, which is the Gen AI, almost like rekindling this and putting data on top over and over again, while the focus and the foundation always remains consistent.
And this is a reason why things like MDM and data quality remain important and are never going to go away, right? They're just not going away because they are foundational enablers.
Absolutely. I think you're right that, starting from the mainframes to the Kimballs and the Inmans to the data warehouses to, the digital transformation during the COVID age, or even before that, the Hadoops. Then came the COVID, now the Gen AI. Every step of the way, the things that are consistent is governance, master data, data quality. These topics keep fundamentals of that remains the same. Technology 100% evolves as and when the next new thing comes along. So that's spot on. I think we should continue, creating that thought leadership. Folks like yourself have to, as though you don't get in front of people as often, but I guess continue to do what you're doing today. So in your mind, if I'm a CDO thinking about data strategy, and data strategy is not at all new, I don't mean to say it. Yep. Coming to the world of Gen AI, I'm thinking about data strategy. I continue to hear from CDOs that they need to go refine and define their strategy. What does that mean to you, Malcolm?
Oh gosh,
that big?
Well, to me, and this kind of gets back to everything that I was just saying in the last 5 minutes about figuring out how to make this right.
Yes.
To me, when it comes to data strategy, what CDOs really need to figure out is how to balance longer term, more strategic, bigger picture stuff with executing against an operating model. Now, okay. Right? What I heard when I was at Gartner over and over and over and over again is, I'm a new CDO. And I'm going to focus on the classic things that a new CDO would need to focus on. Number one, data strategy. Number two, standing up a data and analytics function. Number three, getting my arms around some sort of governance function as well, as a part of the broader data and analytics function. But governance is important. Those three things, and I could talk about a few other things that are going to be key, but consistently, those are the three things that I need to get right. And what I would hear when it comes to data strategy is not, what is it? How do I do it? What are the aspects of a data strategy? I didn't really hear much of that, because I would argue, I'm not saying those things are simple, but kind of what are attributes of a reasonable strategy, I think are reasonably well known. But the problem is that CDOs would say, when I would ask them, okay, well, what's your timeline for that? 6 to 9 months, right? And then 6 to 9 months later, I would talk to them and I would say, well, how's it going? And they go, well, we need to nail down our governance. We need to figure out stuff with data and analytics. We need to do, but there's all these dependent things that I need to pin down. I need to transition our company to a data-driven culture, right? I need to find out how we're going to become more data-driven. I need to change the culture. I need to improve our data literacy. I need to do all of these things before I can actually start executing on my strategy. And I'm like, okay, the next time we talk, your job is probably going to be in jeopardy. If there even is a next time that we would talk, because the business doesn't have a year to wait around for value to be driven from your strategy.
Absolutely.
So this is a long-winded way of saying, hey, there are bigger picture stuff. There's things that are going to take some time to execute against, right? But at the same time, you need to move now. Now. Which is one reason why I'm kind of pro MDM, because nobody's going to argue that your customer data isn't important. right? Nobody's going to argue that
product data, customer
data, exactly.
Data, all of these are such foundation.
P2, man, for sure. That's a P2. We don't have to worry. But governance, this kind of gets back to another post that I had recently about my love-hate relationship with the DM Bach, the data management book of knowledge from our friends at DAMA, who are doing an amazing job at promoting our industry. If you look at a governance framework, just look at understand, it's 10 things on this wheel. Yes. And if you were to do all of it, yes, you're talking years, right?
The Dama flywheel you're talking about, right?
Yeah, years. But yes, I would talk to CDOs over and over again. As a part of my strategy, I need to figure out my governance framework and execute on governance as a dependent activity to improving my reporting, to doing MDM, to doing data quality. And I was like, no, you got to do both. You walk and chew.
Like culture and leadership support?
I heard it a lot, but don't trust me. You can trust a survey that Gartner had of 700 CDOs, and they've been doing every year for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Where a lack of data culture is consistently cited as one of the top 3 reasons for CDOs not delivering against a strategy. Now, the irony to me is that I have a hard time seeing culture as a dependency to deliver value. I see culture as an outcome of delivering value, right? Not a dependency. What I heard all the time is, I got to fix the culture, then I can deliver value. What I would argue is, deliver value, culture will follow.
Culture will fall. Yeah, yeah.
Culture will follow. Like there's no, preceding activity that you can do and box that you can check to say, okay, we're done. We have a data-driven culture. Now I can deliver value, right? That it doesn't work that way. How it works is you need to build trust with your customers. You need to build products they want to use and get value from. When you do that, they will trust you. They will want your stuff. They will use your data to make decisions day in and day out.
Yep.
They will become data-driven.
Yep.
Deliver stuff that helps, that solves problems, that delivers value. Culture is an output of that. It's not a dependency of that.
So to reiterate what you said, you're essentially saying executing something and having users adopt what you're building will help drive the culture or maybe accelerate the culture, because once they start using the products you're building, the data products and the analytical products, everything you're talking about, essentially now they show and tell and start using it,
right?
Which means you're automatically organically growing the data culture. There's no you're not saying 12 months from now we'll be data driven. There's no such thing. 2 days from now, you should be data driven. 5 days from now you should be, and it's an incremental journey.
That's exactly right. And it falls to you, CDO, to model the behaviors you want everybody else to embrace. Okay. So if you're asking everybody else to be data-driven, then I think it needs to start with you. You need to be data-driven. And that starts with being able to quantify the business outcomes of what you're working on. 100%. Right? I can't tell you how many times I go on time. I saw this most fascinating meme the other day on LinkedIn. And it was one of these, like, the young Luke Skywalker and the young Princess Leia memes, where this question of look, just I don't know why they keep using that photo for that. But anyway, I'm paraphrasing. The meme basically said, you built 300 dashboards, business doesn't use them. Oh, business isn't data driven.
Oh my God.
Right? But the premise was, I've built the dashboards, we have the dashboards, and the business isn't using them. So that means that's proof that they're not data-driven. And I'm like,
what about the world's largest database, Microsoft Excel? That's data.
But just imagine, Arvind, imagine you are a baker. Let's say you bake bread, right? You made you make what you think is the most amazing naan ever, okay? And you happen to own the only bakery in the town that you live in. You're the only one, and you're there, and every morning you put your loaves of bread on the shelf, and nobody comes.
Ooh.
Nobody comes. Nobody uses the bread, or the people that show up, they take a look. Nope, it's okay. Yeah. I don't want it. Or maybe get a little business, but not much. Would that baker say, "Oh wow, those people, they don't know the value of nutrition"? Right? They just don't get it. I need to embark on a nutrition literacy program. They don't get it, right? They're not food driven. These silly people, right? Would you be shaking your finger at those people for not buying your bread? Of course you wouldn't.
You keep going back to this word you use, adoption.
Well, right. And you say, maybe I need to make better bread. Maybe I think it's awesome, but apparently not everybody does. So what can I do to better meet the needs of my customers? That's what you would do.
Exactly.
But what we do, we do the opposite.
Well said. I'm going to steal your analogy and tell it to every CDO.
No, please do.
The non-example. I'm gonna definitely take that. Of course, Malcolm, no podcast ends without talking about Gen AI. So I want the data strategist perspective of what your thoughts are in Gen AI. Is it going to influence, change, modernize, or democratize all these buzzwords or platitude words they use in the world of data?
It's such a good question.
Perspective and IT perspective.
It's such a good question, and I'm wrestling with the answer, but I'm not wrestling with the answer. I'm not wrestling with the answer because it's going to happen no matter what.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Just as we've seen over and over again in the past, either we can find a way to support our customers and solve their problems, else our customers will solve their own problems.
Yes.
They will. They just will. This is basically I would argue, kind of how governance is being attacked in most domains these days. They're doing the minimum required and they're getting it done anyway. Are we going to be on the train? Or are we going to be run over by the train? There's a lot of indications to suggest that we are in the process of being run over by it, because we lack fundamental understanding of how these systems actually work. You said Gen AI. I'm glad you said Gen AI. Gen AI is both created and optimized with text. Okay? Text. Okay. There are some models that can use more structured data outside the Gen AI world. If you like, we can get into discussions about machine learning and other forms of AI that are more dependent and are more friendly towards rows and columns. But the fact is, when it comes to Gen AI, these models are built and optimized by text, which is largely ungoverned at most companies.
Of course.
Largely ungoverned, beyond maybe some basic access restraints. But when you talk about kind of like the full-on governance pattern, the flywheel that you would want to apply, I mean, it's just not happening at most text.
Correct.
What I'm seeing is I'm going to conferences and people are talking a lot about, well, we need to improve our foundations. Getting back to the foundations point, we need to improve our foundations in order to enable Gen AI, because these systems are just going to be crazy crackpot systems that go and hallucinate and do all this other stuff. So we need to double down on our governance foundations. Well, if we double down on how we currently do business, it's doing nothing. With one small exception, I would argue, technologists out there, companies out there, are finding ways to build complex interfaces that could best be described as RAG patterns, retrieval augmented generation, but these complex interfaces that could take things out of structured databases, maybe run knowledge graphs on them, maybe do other manipulating to them to get them to the point where they have the context needed for an LLM to make sense of them.
To operate, yeah,
to do that. But for now, we are, when it comes to governance foundations, we're aiming at the wrong target. We're aiming at rows and columns. We're aiming at the things that we've always done, which I would argue, if you are going to try to get into the business of building Gen AI systems, is not really helping. And for today, at the very least, with how these systems are running, really isn't helping either. So how do you get the most, how do you get on that train? Well, I would argue you need to up your game quickly when it comes to how these systems actually work, right? You need to figure out a way to get your arms around unstructured data as quickly as possible. In the interim, probably the best thing that you can do as a data and analytics leader is not focus on building a data science function, if you don't have one, by the way. So if you do, then this doesn't apply to you. But if you don't have a data science function, I wouldn't be running to go build one, because you're talking about a massive investment that's going to take time to ramp up. In the short term, find a way to widely embrace co-pilots, smart agents, other systems out there where a lot of the work is already done for you.
No, this is fantastic. So I'd love to summarize, if that's okay, Malcolm, because there's a lot you unpack there. One common theme I hear from all my guests in the past when I ask about Gen AI is, and I think Randy used this word, Randy Bean used this word, Gen AI is inevitable. I think you used the bullet train analogy. It's taken off the station regardless, right? But at this point, I think it's coming. We don't have a choice, okay? What I hear, three things for you to, for all of us in the world of data and business to focus on is, one, upskilling. So we need to understand what this is, whether it's a technical way or non-technical way, but at the end of the day, understand its capabilities and make sure you have a traceability to how it applies to your business. Absolutely embrace co-pilots, or the meaning of co-pilot, not literally the technology, the support system that Gen AI does, because I want to distinguish that. Last but not the least, this is a very interesting point. You said focus on data governance for unstructured data. Yes. Structured is almost a given, but the text, and instead of the rows, or with the rows and columns, focus on the text as well. Fair?
Yeah, I'll give you a very specific example that hit the news recently. The whole Air Canada case, where the chatbot gave incorrect information about its bereavement policy, which was a function, I believe, of some old text that was floating around on a production server that nobody kind of knew about. But how often do you have externally facing data just that may be unprotected on a SharePoint server or even within a SharePoint server? How often do you have data sitting around dangling on web servers that are old FAQs or that are old marketing documents that are exposed out there that could be digested by LLMs that are completely wrong?
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Like to me, that's where in the short term I would absolutely be focused, because we can say, oh, it's these systems that are hallucinating and all these other things. But if you're a
making them do that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you're a CDO out there that's responsible for all your enterprise data and you've got a whole bunch of data, let's just say for your marketing organization, that is hanging out, maybe sitting on some web server somewhere that is publicly accessible that you haven't looked at in years. Woo!
That is your problem. Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
No, 100%. Look, this is phenomenal. Thank you so much, Malcolm. I've got a last couple of fun questions for you. So I know you run your own CDO Matters Live podcast as well, but outside of that and outside of mine, do you recommend any other podcast that you listen to?
Oh my gosh.
Fun ones.
There's the list is long. I was just a guest on Brian O'Neill's podcast.
Okay.
He talks a lot about data products. He's kind of, I would call him the data product guy.
He was on my show as well. Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to AI, Bill Schmarzo is incredibly intelligent, written a number of books and is publishing a lot of great stuff. I should probably plug, I don't want to give a competitor from a data strategy perspective, but my friend Samir Sharma has got a podcast. He's wonderful and really smart. There's no shortage of amazing content out there. Others I follow really closely on LinkedIn, a gentleman named John Cook, who is trying to kind of solve for some of the smaller language model stuff. I mean, the list is just really long. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see who I follow. And there's a great community of really smart people out there that are working hard to move the needle from the data and analytics perspective. So if you did follow me on LinkedIn, that'd be wonderful.
I will definitely put a link to your CDO Matters so that people can
Awesome.
start knowing who you are and follow you as well. Last but not the least, too much data, just overload of information. What do you do for fun? How do you unwind yourself? You're a photographer.
Yeah, I take pretty pictures.
Travel around the world and
go
take pictures?
Not as much anymore. I did have a little bit of, I don't want to call it an addiction, but I used to do that a lot. Yeah. But now I live at the beach in Florida, so when my day ends at 5:30, I'm very blessed in that I could literally walk out my door, grab a fishing rod, and within a minute, I'm watching manatees play in the water and dolphins play in the water, and I can last night it's just fantastic. But it's really cool. I'm incredibly blessed.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, this morning we saw river otters. We saw these 3 river otters that were playing in the water, which is just the coolest thing. So yeah.
That's amazing. Well, Malcolm, thank you so much for coming to my show. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that I've not covered you'd like to cover?
No. I mean, the conversation goes on, right? So connect with you, obviously. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I will happily have conversations through LinkedIn about anything that you might want to talk about, because I am kind of passionate.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to my show, Malcolm.
Thanks, Arvind. It's been a pleasure.